There are a couple of ways we can go about using copyright-protected works. The most straightforward way is by obtaining permission, such as a license. However, this method can be costly and is probably not ideal for the average person. The other method we can use is determining an exception or limitation that allows for use. The most commonly referenced copyright limitation is known as fair use. Fair use essentially provides legal permission for the use of a copyright-protected work in cases that meet the criteria of 4 factors. Factor 1 is the purpose and character of the use. In general, fair use is easier to prove in cases where the use is to the benefit of society. For example, the use of materials in non-profit and scholarly or educational contexts tend to be favored over those used for commercial or entertainment purposes. Factor 2 has to do with the nature of the copyrighted work being used. Though it is entirely possible to prove fair use of creative works, it is typically easier to do so when using works of a more factual nature. Publication status is also taken into special consideration because copyright law values a creator's right to decide when and how their work is shared. The third fair use factor is concerned with how much of a work is used. You may have heard that using 10% or less of a work is fair use. However, the amount of a work used is considered both quantitatively and qualitatively. Even if only a small portion of a work is used, if it encompasses the heart of the work, it may be ruled as an infringement. This factor is highly subjective. There are no definite numbers, only general guidance. Finally, the fourth factor deals with what kind of effect use has on the original work's market. This often overlaps with the first factor, character of use, because use with the same purpose as the original work may create market competition. As a result of case law, we've also ended up with a bit of a bonus factor, which is typically taken into consideration as part of the first factor. This bonus factor is concerned with whether or not the use of a work is transformative. To determine whether a use is transformative, you might ask, does this use change the material by using it for a different purpose? Was the amount taken appropriate for this new purpose? Does the user employ goalposting, surrounding the material being used with commentary? The 4 factors are not simply used as checkboxes to determine fair use. Rather, uses are judged based on how the factors balance out as a whole. Fair use is determined on a case-by-case basis. An analysis of use is highly interpretive. This is by design and allows for user flexibility. To get a better understanding of how the factors are used to determine fair use, we can take a look at a landmark case that helped to define the concept of transformative use. In 1981, photographer Lynn Goldsmith took a series of photographs of the musical artist Prince. In 1984, one of these photos was licensed by Vanity Fair to be used as a reference for an illustration. Vanity Fair commissioned Andy Warhol to create a colored silkscreen print using just Prince's head from the photograph. Following this commission, Warhol went on to create 16 variants of the portrait, which remained in his private collection until his passing. After Prince's passing in 2016, a commemorative magazine was published by Vanity Fair's parent company. It included one of the variants by Warhol as the cover image. The magazine credited the Warhol Foundation, but not Goldsmith. Goldsmith threatened legal action, stating that the variants were copyright violations. The Warhol Foundation filed for a preliminary hearing, and Goldsmith filed a counterclaim. The case made it to the Supreme Court, where it was ruled not fair use, but not without a fight. In her ruling, Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote that the use of a copyrighted work may nevertheless be fair if, among other things, the use has a purpose and character that is sufficiently distinct from the original. In this case, however, Goldsmith's original photograph of Prince and AWF's copying use of that photograph in an image licensed to a special edition magazine devoted to Prince share substantially the same purpose, and the use is of a commercial nature. Her ruling communicated that even though the transformative nature of a work helps to weigh against the market impact in a fair use decision, that impact is still relevant. Justice Kagan's dissenting remarks took issue with the majority's belief that Goldsmith's photograph and Warhol's work shared the same essential nature. The description is disheartening. It's as though Warhol is an Instagram filter, and a simple one at that, for example, sepia tinting. What is all the fuss about, the majority wants to know. ignoring reams of expert advice explaining, as every art historian could explain, exactly what the fuss is about. The majority plants itself firmly in the "I could paint that" school of art criticism. No wonder the majority sees the two images as essentially fungible products in the magazine market. Publish this one, publish that one, what does it matter? It's important to remember that only federal judges decide whether a use is fair. We can use previous decisions to guide our best practices as to how we interpret the four fair use factors. Different disciplines or professions may even have their own best practice guidelines, which we'll explore more later. Now let's look at how licensing can be used to make otherwise protected materials more accessible. As discussed previously, copyright protections on relevant works are automatic. So what can creators do when they want to give users permission for using their work that extend beyond the exceptions of fair use? Creative Commons licenses can be applied to works by a creator, granting public permission to use their work. There are 4 different license elements with various limitations, and they can be combined to create a license that works for the creator. BY requires credit to be given to the work's creator. SA, or share alike, indicates that any adaptations of a work must be shared under the same license. NC indicates that only non-commercial uses of a work are permitted. And finally, ND indicates that no derivatives or adaptations of a work are allowed. These elements can be combined to make 6 different licenses that range from CC BY, which is the most permissive option, to CC BY NC ND, which is the most restrictive option. Creative Commons also allows creators to give up their copyright entirely, entering it into the public domain. This is done by using the public dedication tool, CC0. CC0 gives users the right to distribute, remix, adapt, and expand material with no conditions. Works in the public domain are not protected by copyright, trademark, or patent laws. Hence, they are owned by the public. These works can be used freely without permission. Works may enter the public domain when a CC0 dedication is made, as in the case of Getty Museum's release of over 88,000 images of artworks, the copyright has expired, as in the case of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, first published in 1813, and when copyright protection does not apply, as with federal government publications, which immediately enter the public domain upon creation. Each year on January 1st, more works enter the public domain. Copyright law has changed a great deal over the years, so the works entering the public domain now were under different copyright terms than the works being created today. The 1998 Copyright Term Extension Act established a 95-year-old copyright term for works created and published with a copyright notice before 1978. These terms expire January 1st following the 95th year. For example, this means that on January 1st, 2026, works from 1930 entered the public domain. In our examination of copyright, we've learned that these laws are structured in a manner that balances the rights of both creators and users. Fair use and public domain provide opportunities for us to use current or previously copyright-protected works. But even when our use of works is allowable, we still need to credit creators and use sources responsibly. In the next video, we'll take a look at plagiarism and the values that are encompassed by academic integrity. Want some help? Schedule a research appointment with one of our librarians today.